Let's get started on the frame by frame animation project. You will have access to this grade sheet on Canvas under Files. And it's important that you follow these things. Now, most of them I'll be explaining in very good detail throughout these animations, but it's important if you already know the program a little bit to keep a couple things in mind. The first thing to keep in mind is that I've already covered a lot of the basics of Adobe Animate in the previous videos that were assigned. So at this point, you should have completed 2 take-home quizzes and watched all the associated videos for them so that when you're watching these videos and I go through things quickly, you'll know that we've already covered it and you should have how to do some of those things in your notes. Secondly, is if you miss things on this grade sheet, it will obviously count against your grade. So if you know the program already, this is not the time to show me that fact. In other words, it says do not use any form of tweening other than the or any other features of the software. Just keep it simple with frame by frame animation. So if you don't do things in this order and similar to what I'm doing in these, then I won't be able to accurately grade or give you many points for the project. Now I do slightly encourage you, if you will, to put your own twist on these things. For example, I'm going to show how to use the brush tool in frame by frame animations with an inchworm. But if you'd rather do that with, I don't know, a walking dog or something like that, you certainly can, as long as you're drawing the dog with the brush tool and you are truly creating a frame by frame animation by using the F7 key. So similar to all these other ones, and I will go over these with you. So let's go ahead and get started. We'll open up the program. Okay, so in Adobe Animate, we are going to go File, New. We are going to set up our stage dimensions per the ones that are on the handout, which was 1600 pixels wide by 1200 pixels tall. Frame rate was 12. It's already set to 12, but just for demo purposes, you can see I'm just putting my cursor in here. You can double click, you can swipe across, you can enter the number and then tab away from it. We always use in this class ActionScript 3.0, and then we will go ahead and click on Create. Now when the document opens, you notice we've been talking a lot about the Properties panel. When nothing else is selected, or even if something else was selected, you can always switch over to Doc. But it's set to Doc, meaning Document, and it tells you the properties of the document, which we just set, 1600 wide by 1200 tall. And then the stage color, we can just go ahead and copy and paste that from the handout, or you can type it in manually. It's set up in what's known as a hexadecimal format here. So this is it. If you want to know more about that, you can Google this, but it's basically broken down into this is one color, this is another color here, and this is another color here, as in RGB, the amount of red, green, and blue that's put in to make that color. So I'll just Command C to copy that, switch back over to the program, Command V, paste that in up here, and then just hit return, and we now have our color set. And as we talked about in the previous videos, it's hard to tell where our stage stops and starts. So one thing that's smart to do right away is just put the cursor over the top of the hand tool. Don't select the hand tool, just put the cursor over the top, double click it, and then remember you can also do Command minus and Command plus, so you really get an idea of where your stage stops and starts. Okay, so the first part of the animation is going to be using the brush tool and the F7 keys to do a frame by frame, and for the example I'm going to show an inchworm inching across the stage. So I'm going to go over here. You can see if you put your mouse over these items, by default they tell you what they are. So we want the classic brush tool, so we click on that. You can see over here in properties now it tells you the options that are available for that brush tool, and I'm going to go ahead and click on the fill color here, and I'm going to set it to green, which seems appropriate for an inchworm. And then I can control the brush size here, but I can also move my cursor over the stage and use the left and right bracket keys, which are the keys just to the right of the P key. And I'm going to make this inchworm fairly small on here so that I can show him doing his thing a few times. So I'm going to start out here over all the way to the left, and I'm going to draw the inchworm getting ready to do something. So we now have our very first keyframe done. Let's just do one more, take a chance before we save. We'll do F7. That'll give us another keyframe. There's a new keyframe, and then we'll go ahead and we'll draw what I'm guessing would be the next stage of the worm. Get him to hunch his back up like that. So if we scrub the playhead, we have this, then this. And then let's go ahead and save now. So we'll do a file, save as. We'll navigate to the folder that we made for saving and give it a name, and we may as well name it for the class already. Everything you turn into me will be named your last name, an underscore your first name, an underscore a description, which a good one for this would be F by F, short for frame by frame. And then of course the native file format is FLA. Mine is on my desktop here. So if I can't find the desktop like this, I can always go to here, back up a bit, meaning go down the list here, and then I should see desktop from here. And I'm going to go ahead and save it in this folder. Click save. There we go. So let's move on, and we'll click on the second frame, do an F7 to give us our third keyframe. And now that it's getting difficult to know where to draw that worm, we'll turn on this important feature here called onion skin. So we click on that, and what it does is shows us in transparency what came before. So that's our second frame, and then even lighter behind that is our first frame. So now that the inchworm has inched up, let's kind of keep its tail end moving forward, kind of giving it some momentum. We'll have it stand straight up here, and then we'll do another frame with the F7, and here we'll have it go a little bit forward so it looks like it's kind of sliding out. So that's kind of one complete section of that. We can turn the onion skinning off just by clicking on that icon again, scrub the playhead, and we can see what the worm is starting to do, kind of slapping itself onto the ground. So we just want to keep doing F7s and keep repeating that across the stage. So I'll do a little bit more with you, and then I'll pause and show you my completed thing. So basically my next frame is going to look a lot like my second frame where the worm inches up again. F7, get that onion skinning back on, and make them inch forward like that. And I think you get the idea there. I'm going to continue, and I'll show you what I have. Okay, so you can see I've completed the sequences that I need for the animation. I got to the end here, and then what I decided was no need to show him anymore. So then I did a blank frame here, just did an F7 and didn't draw anything in it. So there's absolutely nothing there. You can see when the onion skinning is off. So there's the last frame, and then boop, he disappears because he inched himself off stage. Interesting concept about the onion skinning. When you turn it on, it just looks like by default it shows the previous two frames. But notice when you turn it on, what happens over here. You get what I like to refer to as parentheses, like this is the start, this is the end. So I can grab this first left parenthesis and drag it back, and that will show me all of my onion skinnings. You can see they get lighter and lighter, but you can actually change in the preferences if you ever feel like you need to. But I think the defaults are quite acceptable for the onion skinning. Now what you should be doing often when you animate is in addition to the inside the program viewing, you should be doing command return often so that you can see what the animation looks like in real time. Now, if I try to do that with you, show you what I have, it jitters. You can tell that it's not working properly. So you have to look at yours and then adjust it accordingly. But for right now, you're just following along with me. So when I previewed mine, what I noticed was it just went by way too fast. And if you think about it, each 12 frames is 1 second. There's the 1 second mark, there's the 2 second mark. So we've done a lot of work, but it only occupies not even a second and a half. So a lot of times what helps is when you're showing an animation is it shouldn't just jump right into important action. So the only action we have is the worm. So why not let it set there for about a second before it starts to advance? So I'm going to go ahead and turn off the onion skinning so we can see better what's happening here. I want this first frame to last for 12 frames or more, about 1 second. So and this is kind of helps you understand the difference between a keyframe and a tween frame in the digital realm. These are all keyframes, and keyframes are the ones that have the dots on them. So if we click on this first keyframe and then take our F5 key, each time we click it, we're adding a tween frame to that, which is short from between, the frames between the keyframes. So I'm going to advance that out till it occupies at least past the 1 second mark. And just to give you an idea a little bit more about keyframes and tween frames. Back in the old days of hand drawing cartoons or any kind of animation, you had the key artists, the high paid people. They would draw something and then they would draw the next significant thing that happened. And it was up to the underpaid people, the tweeners, to draw all the frames in between. So that's how the naming convention came about. Now, it's not quite 100% parallel to the older days or storyboarding in that the main artist wouldn't have drawn all these things. They probably would have drawn one sequence and the tweeners would have drawn the rest. In fact, like once the production was in force, the keyframer probably would have just drawn the worm here and over here to get the idea across, and the tweeners would have had to do all the rest of it. But in the digital realm, we call the ones that are, that are not controlled by the computer keyframes, like this one, and then any of these frames are called tween frames. And then one more thing that we'll do to this animation to extend it out just a little bit and to give our audience a little more chance to enjoy it, since this is kind of a key thing when that worm is, almost standing up. Let's click on that frame and extend that, maybe just give her 2 F5 clicks, and then we'll scrub through here and find out where's the next time that happens. So every time we see that frame, we'll F5 it a couple times just to give it a little more impact, make it last a little bit longer. And as you recall on the grade sheet, it says that the first, the animation lasts only 10 seconds. But don't worry about if the next thing you do seems like it's going to take you over that time. So each thing should last maybe about 3 to 4 seconds. But if we get past 10 seconds, it's very easy to fix. We'll just overlap the things, and you'll see what I mean by that as we go along. Okay, so taking a quick look at the grade sheet, we've accomplished this. In the next video, we'll pick up here with the F6 add-on type animation.